Are you wondering if your family makes too much money for your child to get financial aid? If so, you are not alone. This is one of the most common questions that parents ask. Is there an income cutoff for FAFSA? And so in this video, I'm going to break down whether FAFSA has income limits, and if your family makes a moderate income, is it worth applying to anyway? And how your family's income really impacts that eligibility so that you can see if it's worth filing or not. So, which by the way, the answer is yes, but stick with me, I'll explain why. Now make sure you hit subscribe because every week we have a new strategy for your family, regardless of your income, to work towards that debt-free degree. Hey there, my name is Jocelyn Pearson, founder of the Scholarship System, where we help families who are overwhelmed with trying to figure out how to pay for college secure scholarships so that their student can graduate with as little debt as possible. Now, our main weapon is scholarships, and we've helped families secure over $15 million to date. But really, it's a combination of strategies, including FAFSA, that really get us to where we can get paid to go to college. Now, just a quick note, this is not for international students. This is for U.S. citizens and permanent residents. We're not familiar with FAFSA and international students. All right, so let's dive in. First, is there an income limit for FAFSA? The quick answer is no. There is no official limit that automatically disqualifies your student from federal financial aid. So many families are surprised to hear this. Now, there are charts that show how grants phase out based on income level, etc., but there's really no just dead number that says, nope, you won't get anything. But income does play a big role in what your family and what your student will get for federal aid, but it, again, does not completely shut them out. In fact, over 30% of families who make six figures and filled out FAFSA received some sort of aid. And even if it's student loans, those loans will be better than what you will get from the private sector. So either way, it's always worth applying to. Now, I do want to say also, regardless of income, all families should be applying for scholarships because that is an outside source of funding, regardless of income, that we can use to really close the gap. So I just want to say that don't think income level will just make nothing worth our time. That's not the truth, okay? I do have a free webinar for you. It's about an hour long where I cover where to find legitimate outside scholarships that have less competition. So if you go to thescholarshipsystem.com/free webinar, you'll also find that link down in the description, or you can click this video here and that'll take you there. So check that out after this video because that's the next step no matter what your family makes. So let's get into how FAFSA uses your family's income. So when you submit FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, FAFSA, the government will use information to calculate a number called the Student Aid Index, SAI. This used to be known as EFC, Expected Family Contribution, but it has changed. The calculation has changed over the years. So this number helps colleges, though, figure out how much need-based aid does your student qualify for, whether it's Pell Grants or subsidized loans where the interest does not accumulate until after college, and what that family might be reasonably expected to pay out of pocket. So do we agree with that number? Not usually, but that is the way that you can read that number. The higher the income, generally, the higher the SAI number. And that means ultimately some colleges, it'll be less need-based aid. But even higher income families can still qualify for some of those federal student loans that I mentioned. It can also qualify your student for institutional aid or merit scholarships that are not based on income. They can also possibly qualify for work study. So this is why we have to submit FAFSA no matter what. Now, we have a whole video all about what federal work study, what that program is, and how to use that to pay for college. So we will link to that in the description below, or you can check out that video here as well. All right, so let's take a look at income versus other factors. So it's not just about income when it comes to filing FAFSA. They've drastically decreased the number of questions it asks, but still there are other factors. So there is the adjusted gross income, but family size is also used in this calculation and assets as well. So it is a complex formula, which is exactly why guessing does not work and why we always want to do this research ahead of time, not wait until our students heading to college. So the Department of Education actually has a handy tool called the Student Aid Estimator. We will link to that as well to give you and your student an estimate of what they might be eligible for. So again, you'll find that link below and all the other amazing resources in the description. So make sure you do not click off this video, you check those out first. So I've mentioned it already, but let's talk about why we want to submit FAFSA no matter what. And here's the big takeaway. We need you to submit FAFSA because even if you think that your family earns too much money, we've found stories of families missing out. One family missed out on $17,000 a year from their college by not submitting FAFSA. So this is actual stories we've seen. But you can still be eligible again for student loans that typically have better terms than private loans. You don't have to co-sign them for your student. Your student can get work study possibly. It might unlock state or school-based aid that requires FAFSA, even if it's not necessarily need-based. And again, it might help your student qualify for scholarships that require FAFSA. So their definition of need might be different than what the government's is. And again, some colleges won't even consider your student for their own funds without it, even again, if it's not need-based. So skipping the FAFSA could literally mean leaving free money on the table. Again, that one family specifically left $17,000 per year on the table. Now, what if your income changes? So FAFSA uses prior tax year to figure things out. And so for some families, their situation changes after filing or since the data that's used to file, maybe a job loss, maybe medical bills, some other major expense. And so this is when it goes into something called a financial aid appeal. And this is where you can actually appeal your student's financial aid package with proof of the special circumstances. So sometimes, and we've helped families use, we've seen them come back with thousands of dollars more per school year because of an appeal. So do not hesitate to ask the department about that if you think this might be an option for you. Now, just some quick tips for parents. Filing early. We always want to file early, but first, some of it is first come, first serve. We also want to make sure that we double check for mistakes. So accuracy is important. Otherwise, it can possibly lead to a delay or reduce what your student could qualify for. It can get it hung up in the financial aid office, and we don't want that. Another thing to note is the CSS profile. So some schools require the FAFSA and CSS profile, which has additional questions to help them figure out aid. So make sure you know if your student's school requires FAFSA or FAFSA and the CSS profile. And then the other thing I want you to remember is, again, that FAFSA is just one part of the puzzle. When we talk about in our Debt-Free Degree Lab program about all the different strategies that can be stacked to get towards that debt-free degree, we're talking about, yes, FAFSA, but also, of course, scholarships, for example. There's so many saving strategies, ways to make money. The list goes on. We've got dozens of strategies in that program. So just remember that FAFSA is only the beginning, okay? So that said, again, don't forget that scholarship training that I mentioned earlier. And you can go to thescholarshipsystem.com/free webinar to sign up for that, or click on this video again, and that'll take you there. But also make sure you hit subscribe because every week we have a new strategy for your family. Now, before we wrap up, let me know in the comments below. Did you submit FAFSA or were you told not to by someone? I'd love to hear that. I think that it helps to see that other families were told the same and you're not alone. So just a quick recap. Here's the hard line, or here's the bottom line. There is no hard income limit for FAFSA. Any family can be possibly eligible for something, and every family should submit this free form. It is free. It is only 30 questions. It really doesn't take actually that long, not compared to the old one, but we do want to submit it, and we have to submit it every year our student is in college. Don't let assumptions or opinions of other people possibly cost your family tens of thousands of dollars over the 4 years. And if you have any questions, comment with them below and we will be sure to reply to them in the comments. All right, don't forget to check out that free scholarship training and hit subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.